Morning Reds, it's Talking Reds, it's John Gibbons with Josh Sexton, and we're coming to you live on Wednesday morning, back live with these. Had a little bit of a break for the international break. Tried out a few of our subscription videos for you for free, so I hope you enjoyed them and I hope to give you a little bit more of a taste of what we're doing every day here at the Anfield Wrap. But as I say, we are back with the Talking Reds, so we are back with the LFC news and what's going on. And surprising my transfer chat today, Josh, it must be said. I don't know whether it's an international break, so everyone's just sort of thinking more about January and next summer and what's to come, but quite a bit out there.
Transfers never die, John. It's like cockroaches that would survive the apocalypse. I think transfers would genuinely survive the apocalypse. Rob Gutman would still be in his bog somewhere recording himself talking about transfers, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Great Britain's been blown up, but Rob Gutman is holed up in Portugal, making transfer content for you guys. That's how dedicated he is. But if he was doing a gutter today, he'd have lots to get his teeth into, both ins and out, Josh. And was a start with an out, and it's quite an amusing one for me anyway. Maybe a worrying one for some people, I don't know. But it's a story, it's come from Spain and from a Spanish outlet, which I won't try and pronounce. But it says that Real Madrid have added Trent Alexander-Arnold to their transfer list. I thought transfer lists were out of fashion, to be honest with you, but it still is a thing. Yeah, they've had a look at him. They like him, which shows a good judge of right back. And yeah, they might make a move. One of the funny things is that apparently he's valued at €75 million, which is £64 million, which I think you'd probably want to add a 1-2 in front of.
I probably had a couple of zeros behind it as well, to be honest. I think I'm going to rival Real Madrid, and I'm going to add Trent Alexander-Arnold to my staying list because I've had a look at him and I think he's really good. So I'd quite like Trent Alexander-Arnold to stay. It's completely mad, to be honest, isn't it? Like, every noise that Trent has made since he came through at Liverpool is that one day he wants to be captain, he wants to be, a one-club man and all this kind of thing, and then Real Madrid are apparently just saying, he's good at football, isn't he? Should we pay 64 million for him? It's like, it's not the way it works anymore, lads. You don't just get to pick which players from European and world football you can just go and take. Like, it's one of them grabbing machines in an arcade. Like, he's a Liverpool player. Liverpool, one of the best teams in the world, if not the best team in the world. He's the best right back in the world, and he's completely in this team for a reason. Yeah,
and it was notable as well that of all the contracts this summer, his was the one that was announced, I think first, certainly one of the first. Apparently it was very easy one to do. I mean, obviously, he got weighed in and he got the money that he deserves as a sort of as a top class player and all that. But it wasn't one that rumbled on, was it? Let's face it. It was like, oh, Trent signed, there we go, boom. And it's like, it just shows that this is the place that he wants to be for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. Like, as I mentioned before, he's always sort of had that commitment to the club, and you can tell that he genuinely means that. Like, every time he talks about Liverpool, he talks about it as if he's a fan. He doesn't talk like he's a player. There's obviously media interviews where the media training sort of kicks in for him, but you see it after they win trophies and when big moments have happened throughout his time at Liverpool, of which there have been so many, he sort of reverts back into that fan, and that's because he is. We've seen all the pictures of Trent as a kid kicking around with Liverpool kits drowning him and all these kinds of things, and like, you can just tell that he is someone who could spend the rest of his career at Liverpool. And I don't believe for a second that there's going to be anybody there who is any other clubs in Europe or the world who are going to be managing to gazump Liverpool and get Trent Alexander-Arnold off their hands.
Yeah, just in the comments here, Chad Ford's been on. He said Trent and Newcastle for 400 million. I mean, 400 million is more like it, is what I would say, but I don't think he'll be moving to Newcastle anytime soon. I think Newcastle might still go down,
It's well colder up north as well. I mean, it's colder in Liverpool today and it's getting colder, but I mean, Newcastle is a different level of cold. So Trent, if you are thinking about that, just jib it, lad.
It's freezing, lad. It's freezing. I used to live there. Very, very cold, notably when you got off the train. In terms of the ins, Ian Rush has been on.
To you?
Yeah. Interesting Ian Rush fact is both me and Josh have been in Ian Rush's car.
Was yours today when he told you this?
Ian Rush, give me
John, get in.
Ian Rush gave me a lift to work in his lovely Range Rover, and in there he said, who I think we should sign, John? And I said, who, Ian? And he said, Kylian Mbappe. And I was like, well, fair play, Ian. You scored loads of goals, so a goal scorer. He's done an interview with the Daily Mail when he's talked about what Liverpool needs, and it's interesting because he was asked about January, and he said that first of all he doesn't think Liverpool needs to go into the market in January. He thinks if your squad's going well and if you're playing well, and I think he said there if they're top of the league, which I'm into as ambition, then you just sort of keep going with sort of what you got. He think, which is an interesting viewpoint. But then he goes on to say, but he thinks that they'll invest next summer. He thinks they'll go for another forward option. He said, he thinks it should be a younger player who's got ability to grow. And so he's talked about Mbappe and Haaland, and he says, look, they're both great players, but he says he'd go for Mbappe. He thinks he fits into Liverpool's style better, which is an interesting one. And he says he likes making goals as well as scoring them. And I mean, he knows what he's talking about in this area as well would start, Josh.
I think it's a fair point as well. Like Mbappe has just got that touch more versatility. I can understand the sort of hype around Haaland in that he's just an absolute machine, isn't he? He scores so many goals, but he's sort of more of like a prototypical number 9 from the sort of games that I've seen him. And I know like they sort of interchanged a little bit in that Salzburg team, and in that sense maybe there's a bit of a match for Liverpool there. But I think Mbappe's got more of that. He's someone who could play off the right, play off the left, play down the middle. And as Ian says, he makes goals as well as scoring them. It's not just running off the shoulder and booming him in from 30 yards like Haaland does. It's cutting him from the left hand side. It's making sure there's not a man in the middle to pass to, then going for goal and that kind of thing. And that's pretty much what we've seen from Sadio Mane and Mo Salah for so many years. And he also fits the age profile of the sort of player that Liverpool should be looking for as well. Look, he's a global superstar, which Liverpool don't genuinely tend to sign. They tend to sign them just on the sort of cusp of that and then make them into that. But he's still at that sort of age where he could be at Liverpool for 10 years to come, playing at the top of his game as long as he sort of stayed fit.
I love the ambition from Rushy as well. They said Rush is on a board of sorts at Liverpool now, which is sort of quite interesting. I'm not saying he's got an interview, necessarily involved in who was sort of buying, because I'm sure he's not. But he is involved, much more sort of at Liverpool now. He sits in the directors' box with Kenny and stuff like that, and he's sort of that sort of level now at Liverpool. But I think it's great that someone who's won as much as he has at Liverpool, who obviously knows where Liverpool should be. He's like, we'll just go out and buy one of the best players in the world, and that's how Liverpool should be talking. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be possible. It obviously looks like Real Madrid are in pole position at the moment for Kylian. I'm not sure on Haaland. I think he's still weighing his options up a little bit more. But it's great that someone like Ian Rush is reminding us all really that if we want to be the best, then you go out to get the best.
Absolutely. I said it about Trent before. This is now one of the and Neil said it during our live show the night. I'm sure he said it many times before. Liverpool are a super club. We don't like to admit it. I think because we sort of embrace that underdog spirit, and I think Jurgen Klopp and these players are the same in terms of once you've got that underdog mentality, you can only sort of exceed expectations from there. But Liverpool are a super club. They're one of the sort of big powers in world football, and one of the best teams in world football as well. And players like Mbappe and Haaland should actually be privileged to come to Liverpool and be a part of this project and be playing under the best manager in world football, which is Jurgen Klopp, and playing with a load of these lads who are the best players in the world. It's dead funny the way people have sort of been talking about the Ballon d'Or and talking about Haaland and Mbappe, and Salah seems to be getting nowhere near a mention, which I find strange. But I'm sure both of them would thrive under Salah in training as well, and be looking to compete. I think, as I said before, Haaland doesn't seem like the sort of match for me to Liverpool. I think he's the sort of player who will just go to one of the sort of state-owned clubs or some sort of superpower. He'll probably pick up 400 grand a week and someone will pay over 100 mil for him. Whereas Mbappe, I think, you've seen it in the sort of what he's been talking about Real Madrid, is that I think he's got a bit of that like Neymar mentality when Neymar left Barcelona, is that he wants to go somewhere and be the main man and sort of lead the next generation of a team, and Real Madrid are a team who are sort of on the cusp of that. So maybe in that sense he doesn't fit Liverpool, because look, Liverpool are well far ahead than Real Madrid at the moment, but maybe it's one we can go for. Maybe it
is one. We shall see. Just to bring in a couple of the comments, Jake McParland says getting Trent out of Liverpool would be harder than getting crisp chat out of Talking Reds, which is fair enough. But it's one of those. But we shall see. A bit more sort of crisp chat there. The Wolfman says there, as if Trent to go to Madrid, they don't have engrossing crisp chat, do they? But we'll see. And the Anfield Wrap says on Trent, better be clickbait. I'm sure that was something on the Trent stuff anyway, that people just sort of trying to get. Well, we've talked about it, so I guess it's worked. Another thing I wanted to talk about, Josh, was a few interesting comments from John Henry around Boston Red Sox. So Boston Red Sox have won some games of baseball. I can't profess to know exactly. I think they're in the semi-finals, the equivalent of the semi-finals, basically. They're not quite in the World Series yet, but they're in the sort of the game before that they've qualified. And he did an interview after the game. And obviously John Henry doesn't talk a lot. So when he does, people sort of listen and people sort of look to read stuff into it, including us right now. And he was asked a little bit about the development, and I think that, he talked a little bit about being further ahead than where they necessarily expect to be. I think there's been a bit of a rebuild going on, sort of new managements and stuff like that, and obviously, he suggested they're doing sort of slightly better. So that's an interesting thing in itself, that's something that they've had to go through, but sort of come out, the other side in terms of what Liverpool might have to do in a few years' time as well. But also, I think one of the coaches is a bit controversial. He was involved in a team a few years ago that I think got either accused or actually found to be cheating effectively, and then they've employed him and said, well, that was a bit controversial. He said, well, he used the line, well, we don't listen to outside noise, and that was the sort of most interesting one for me, because obviously there's been times over the last year or so where you'd have liked them to have listened to a bit of outside noise. We think about the stuff around the Super League and things like that, and the times where you think, well, if you'd have just listened to not necessarily even the supporters, but people within the club who understand how things would land a little bit better than maybe they would, or just people sort of in the game in this country really, and they haven't, and they've made mistakes, but obviously he still feels like, generally speaking, that's the right way to go.
Yeah, it's like selective hearing, as I'm sure all your Mars used to say to you whenever you wouldn't listen to them. Look, you don't get to be where John Henry is in sort of financial stature if you don't listen to a bit of outside noise. I think you do just have that selective hearing. If someone's telling you something you don't want to hear, then you choose not to hear it, basically, and that seems to be what sort of happened with his coach, and it seems to be a couple of times what's happened with Liverpool fans as well. But it is interesting just the sort of quotes in general and where the Red Sox have got to, because they've almost been on like a similar time frame as Liverpool, in terms of they were a bit of a sleeping giant. They hadn't won the World Series for however many years, and then using quite smart moves, John Henry got them to win their first World Series in the same way that after 30 years he got Liverpool to their first Premier League title as well. So I think there's definite similarities there. There was actually a lad who wrote a piece for us a few years ago, sort of comparing some of those similarities. All of his name slips my mind, so apologies for that. But you could find it on our website if you just search the Boston Red Sox on the AnfieldWrap.com, and it's really good, sort of comparing all those similarities, because it does seem like there are a lot of them in terms of the way that John Henry is and FSG in general have sort of managed the both teams. And even in that article, it said that he'd come out and praised it was like a baseball officer or something like that, and then the manager as well, which is effectively Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp to the Boston Red Sox. And even in that sense, I think that's interesting, because I don't think John Henry professes to know everything about Liverpool Football Club. I don't think he even professes to know everything about the Boston Red Sox, but he's always employed people who do sort of know the most about these kind of things, and know the most about transfers, and know the most about how to play football, and know the most about how to play baseball, obviously. And I think that's massively paid off for him. It's been a strategy which has massively paid off for them, and they seem to be massively beating the odds now as well, so fair play to them.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, because both Boston Red Sox sort of failure and success has both at times been used as a stick to beat them FSG with by Liverpool fans. So I've heard when they weren't doing maybe so well a year ago, people saying, oh, but if you see Boston, even Boston Red Sox are struggling now, do you know what I mean? Even their fans don't like them and stuff like that, and that was sort of a negative. But when they're doing well, it's suddenly like, oh, they just concentrate on that, and that's not what they're bothered about. So it can sort of work either way really, and I think it's probably one of those where if you want to have a go, you'll always sort of find a way. But for me, it's a bit reassuring when I see the Boston Red Sox flying, and if they go on to win the World Series again this year, because I think it shows that it's an ownership group that do want to win, that it's an ownership group that are motivated by winning, and an ownership group that sort of, as I say, know what it takes to win in a sport that's competitive, and there's other times where other people might have sort of more resources or different tactics or whatever, but they'll sort of still find a way. That's not to say that guarantees success at Liverpool, and that's not to say that even necessarily it makes them the best owners for Liverpool, but it is a tick in their box for me when Boston Red Sox do well.
Yeah, it sort of depends which way you look at it, doesn't it? And unfortunately, it's become a bit of a black and white issue, and actually there's loads of nuance and grey areas to it. And I don't doubt for a second that FSG want to win things. I don't doubt they want to win things with the Boston Red Sox. I don't doubt they want to win things with Liverpool, because ultimately everything that both of those clubs win, it strengthens FSG's asset, which is both of those clubs. I just think that John Henry's trying to do it in a way in which he sort of cheats the system, and that's maybe where some people have gripes. For all the years I've been playing FIFAs and Football Managers and that kind of thing, and I know that's frowned upon when people talk about that in sort of football circles. But I always love getting a shit team basically, and then building it up with young players and things like that. I quite like going on there and cheating the system, because it's just a more fun way of doing it. So if you're shifting that to real life and you're putting me as sort of John Henry in that situation, I can see why he wants to do it and wants to cheat the system, because ultimately it would be a lot of fun to keep beating Man City and keep sort of tipping that state-owned superpower, and now Newcastle into the equation. Chelsea are also sort of been in the equation as well in recent years. So I think that sort of explains the logic behind it. And look, I think people are going to have differences of opinion all the time. I think people are going to look at it in different ways. But to be honest, I don't really have a problem with the idea of not sort of going out and spending loads and loads of money. I'd rather they backed Jurgen Klopp in the way that he sort of wants to be backed. But I also think that a load of these clubs have shown down the years that spending money doesn't necessarily guarantee your success, and obviously vice versa as well.
Yeah, we shall see. But good luck to the Boston Red Sox. Obviously, there's a big Boston supporters club who are very passionate and have looked after us in the past. So if they're Red Sox fans, I hope they do well. And you know what they say, Josh, when the Red Sox win, we all win.
Exactly.
I think I've just upset probably quite a lot of people who support different teams. But anyway, I don't really mean it.
Who else supports the Los Angeles Angels? I mean, they're not in the playoffs, so they're rubbish, I think. But they've got one really good lad.
I don't want to upset Fuad.
No, exactly.
Never. Not his lovely face.
We'll find out if Phil Blunder supports and upset him instead.
It'll be some nerds. Just a couple of other little comments before we sort of wrap up. There's a young fan called Jordan Singleton in the comments, just saying hello there. Hiya Jordan at home. Hope you're well and hope you're enjoying it. Just want to say as well a few other things. If you're not doing anything tonight, maybe get yourself down to Prenton Park if you're in the area. The women play Aston Villa, who are actually a division above them. Sorry, it's a competition called the Continental Cup, which is a group stage, and Aston Villa are in the group with us. They're a WSL1 team. So yeah, it's a decent little opportunity for Liverpool to test themselves at that level. Obviously, we're all hoping that Liverpool go up this season. They're currently in second place in WSL2, so going along okay. But be interested to see how they do against Villa tonight. So it's 7 o'clock. Get yourself on the website. If you're on the Anfield Wrap mailing list, you'll have got an email yesterday with a code that gives you tickets for free. So you just need to be able to use that. But if you're not, well, you can join the mailing list at any time, and we send those out. But the tickets are sort of fairly cheap anyway. So I'm going to go down with it. I think a couple of others from the Anfield Wrap as well. So it'd be nice to see you 7 o'clock at Prenton Park if you want to go to that. LFC women playing Aston Villa in their first game in the Continental Cup. Also on Saturday, the under-23s are playing at Anfield. That's at 4 o'clock, so you can be able to watch the Liverpool-Watford game on telly if you're not going, and then maybe get yourself over to Anfield. It's always a nice opportunity to maybe take some kids, or for people who don't normally get a chance to go to Anfield, because obviously tickets are really hard to get yourself in the stadium watching a Liverpool team. Not quite sure how strong the under-23s are going to be. We did a One for the Future show yesterday, which Josh hosts, which is all about the academy, and talked a little bit about this game. And it's always difficult, isn't it, Josh, to know what kind of team the under-23s are going to put out, because there's a lot of different factors. But it'll be a young Reds team. There'll be some good, exciting talent on there, and as I say, a good chance to get in Anfield, maybe with some kids as well.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a few sort of injury concerns around that as well. Like Cade Gordon is probably a bit of a doubt for the game, because he's had a few injury issues recently. But I mean, if he plays, then he'd be value enough money for your ticket anyway. But there's a load of other really exciting lads down in the academy, and Barry Lutz is a great coach as well, and has that team well drilled. I mean, they've not had a great start to the season, but as you say, it's always a bit of a turbulent team where there's a load of moving parts. But hopefully they'll get a big win at Anfield on Saturday. Yeah, and the Ulster boys from the Anfield Wrap are going down in Conor Bradley t-shirts, ready to sort of cheer him on, definitely. And then the very last thing, I wanted to point out that there's a special offer on our merch site at the moment. So if you go to theanfieldwrap.com/shop, and basically if you pay full price for any shirt, you get one of the t-shirts in our sale for free. So we'll send you out one in the same size as you bought one, so you could have this lovely Diego Jota top if you wanted it, if you're a big Diego fan, and who isn't. Or there's another one there which is our Ramon style shirt as well for Bobby, Sadio, Mo and Naby. So that is one of our sort of best sellers over the years as well. So basically, yeah, buy a full price t-shirt and you get one of the sale ones for free. So yeah, get yourself to theanfieldwrap.com/shop and get involved in that. But in the meantime, thanks a lot to the guys for setting up today, obviously for Josh, and to you guys, especially the people in the comments helping us out along the way. Up the Reds, have a lovely day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.